Hey guys, this next tutorial is going to cover how to make a leaf shader. And so this will cover the Sprite Shader and the ray switch. A lot of people wonder how you can get a double-sided material in Redshift. Other rendering applications have a double-sided utility shader or slot to slot in your textures into. And Redshift uses something called a ray switch, which is a little more powerful than just a double-sided material. It can do quite a couple other things. And so I'll be going over that process. And so right now, all we have is just this basic tree, HDR dome light, and a plane for the floor. I have a refractive box right now, so it's just a glass shader on this box. A plane that I'll be using to make the leaf shader, and then I'll apply it onto the tree itself. And then a mirror plane, and the reason I need these two is so I can better explain the ray switch shader once we get to it. And so right now, if I just start up an IPR, as you can see, there's just a basic mirror plane, refractive box, and the tree itself, and then our plane that we're going to use for the shader, for the leaf shader. And so right now for the leaf and this plane, we just have a basic Redshift material, nothing else going on, just stock. And so I labeled this leaf front. And so to get things started, I'm actually going to start with the Sprite Shader to get our shape cut out. And so the Redshift Sprite Shader is used to make leaf cutouts or other cutouts where you just don't want Redshift to calculate anything outside of it. And I know some people notice that if you go under the Redshift material, there's the under overall, there's the opacity slot. And so you can use gradiated cutouts in the opacity slot, but due to trace depths, you can only hit 16. The Sprite Shader negates the trace depths, and so you can have basically as many as you want. And so this is really important for trees that have layered leaves. So you have tons of leaves, and eventually if you just use the opacity, you'll start losing the details inside of it. The rays will cut off. And so using the Sprite Shader, this negates this. And so what you want to do is this is the last node on your chain to your material. And so pipe this out for now. We'll put this into the input, and we'll make the output for this, and we'll actually assign it also to our test plane that we have right here. And so we'll go up here, we assign the Redshift sprite. And so what this shader has, it has a couple slots. You pipe in whatever nodes and shaders you have behind it into this slot. So we have just the material. And then from there you have the stencil slot. And so this is where you want to pipe in your texture. So if you open that up, you'll get some options to search for your texture. And so you want to have white be what's revealed and black be what's cut out. I know that Maya software and a couple other render engines have this reversed, so just keep that in mind. And so we'll just select that. And you have the option of choosing from intensity or from an alpha. So let's say your colored leaf shader has an alpha mask already built into the TIFF or EXR or whatever. You could just select this. Then there's the stencil opacity threshold. And so this is if you want it basically to be sensitive to your luminosity from the intensity, so up or down. And if you want the texture to tile, and of course an image sequence. So right now, one of the downsides to using a Sprite Shader is it has no Viewport 2.0 visibility. So if I turn on Viewport 2.0, which it is on right now, so you can see that the bark texture is showing through, but it's not cutting out any of the leaves or this plane. And that's just one of the limitations right now with Redshift and Viewport 2.0. Hopefully this gets addressed in the future, but it's not a major problem. And so if we want to see what's going on, though, we'll start up an IPR. And as you can see now, that plane, let's make this a little bigger, is now cut out. And so we have the shape of the leaf that we had earlier, and now all the leaves in the tree are also cut out, as you can see. And so that's great. Now we have the cutout, the foundation that we need to keep working on this. So next step now is we need to have the ability to have a double-sided material. And so in order to do this in Redshift, you need to use a node called a ray switch. So let's build that Redshift ray switch. And we'll have the output of this go into the sprite. And we'll have our front layer go into the camera color slot. And so right now it's no different than it was earlier when this wasn't here. But what's great about the ray switch is it lets you do several things. And so right here under camera, it's basically what the camera's viewing, whether it's the front or the back. So if you check this off, and for example, we'll just check it off and we'll make this color really bright red so we can see it. Now, the front normal is the whatever we have piped in, this shader, this Redshift material. And the back now is red, and we can also slot in another material. So I'll be building a second one up for the back. And so this just goes to show you how that works. As you can see in the reflection, the back is red, and the back side of the leaves are red also. And so this is how you get a double-sided material. But it doesn't stop here. The ray switch lets you do a lot of other neat things. So let's turn that back off. And if we turn on the reflection slot now, this lets you override the reflection. So this mirror object, now all the reflections are this red material. And of course you could slot in something else for the back side or the front. And again, you could turn that on or off. So this lets you override reflections. This is useful if you want to, let's say, in your reflections have a low quality or a different color version of the initial shader. So that way you don't waste processing time in reflections. Same thing applies for refraction. So now if we look through the cube that's a mirrored or a glass object, you can see that the leaves that we're seeing through that are being refracted are changing color. So if we turn these both on, what you get is now a combination of the two. The refracted objects are green, and the mirrored reflective objects are red. So same thing applies for GI. So if we turn on the GI, now the GI is this blue color. And so the reason you might want to use any of these features is just for plenty of purposes, basically for processing time. Like let's say you don't need high quality refractions or GI, and you use different nodes, different shading networks to trim down your render times, or for purposes where you want the GI to have a hue, a different hue, or something like that. This gives you just more control. But for our purposes, we're not going to really use any of these. We're just going to stick to the double-sided camera, front and back. And so let's turn this back on. And so now that we have that going, we're going to duplicate the front Redshift material, and we're going to paste this in. We're going to rename this to leaf back, and we're going to input this into the color back. And so what we have now, it'll be the same since it's a duplicate, but what we have now is two shaders feeding into the ray switch, which then feeds into the Redshift sprite to cut everything out, and eventually connects to our leaves and whatnot. And so now that we have these two, let's bring in our front texture. So we'll pipe this in to our diffuse, and then we'll pipe in the back texture into the diffuse for the leaf back shader. And so now let's check out this plane. If we look at just the leaf itself, we zoom in on this leaf, And right now I'm using 2.5, the experimental build. So sometimes I've noticed the Sprite Shader bugs out, and you know, it's experimental. So hopefully this will get fixed later on down the road. And as you can see, the front is the lighter green color, and then the back is now this duller yellower color, just as expected. So now what we got to do is basically just do what we would with any normal material. Just increase, you know, if you want maybe the front to be a little shinier, let's work on the front. So let's get some specular roughness in there. And the backlighting, this is something important actually for thin objects like this. The since this is a plane basically, the leaves, you want backlighting turned on, and let's actually make a light so you can see this better. If you turn on, let's build a small little physical light, and let's navigate that into position. So let's use the look through light editor tool, and let's bring that in somewhere back here. And that location's cool. Let's shrink this down now so we can get a nice small source. And so right now, if we look through it, so you can see that the leaf is basically opaque. You're not getting any nice little color bleeding going on. And so to get that to happen, underneath the Redshift material, we actually have to turn on Backlighting Translucency. And so right now, the weight is at 0. So I usually stick with 0.5, but let's just go all the way to 1. Yeah, 1's way too much. And okay, see, we're getting this bug again. Let's hide that and unhide. For some reason, that seems to fix it. And I think our light source might be way too bright. So let's tone that down. 25. That's still way too much. Let's try 5. Actually, let's tone down the dome light also so you can see it better. So let's just actually, we'll leave that at 1 or 0, but we'll turn it off for now. And so, as you can see, we're getting this gradient. Now the backlighting is working, but the color slot of the backlighting is gray, so that's why we're getting this kind of grayish glow coming out. And so you can change this to a color, for example. So let's do green. And here we go with that bug again. And so now we got this glow going on. But basically, the best way to do this is if you actually had a texture map of the veins, since they're a little thicker and more opaque than the leaf. But I actually don't have one for this leaf. I haven't made one yet. So instead, what we'll do is we'll actually just feed it the backside. Let's just see what happens. So we'll feed in the backside into the color, and let's increase the weight. So now you got let's actually do the front side. It's a little too dull. And so yeah, see now you got this little gradient kind of going on where the light's going through and affecting the opacity of the object, basically. Now it's not just an opaque solid object. So if we increase the light multiplier, we'll see the strength go up. See, and so if we go back to 25, now you get a sense of the leaf is kind of like refracting the light, even though it's a plane, and it has no actual thickness. And so this is actually a cheat. This is it's a lot lighter than actually using real refraction, and so the reason you want to do this is basically if you have any light, a sun, whatever, this adds just a whole lot of depth to your leaves. And so now that we've got that done, let's actually turn on, let's see, we got some reflection, a little bit of roughness, that's fine. let's just go with that. That's plenty. That's fine. And so let's actually work on the back side now. So if we look on the back, we got to turn this side on. The backlighting has to be turned on, and we're going to slot the back side in. We'll do a 0.5. And generally on leaves, the back side is actually not as shiny and not as smooth. They're a little fuzzier, so we're gonna get some roughness in there and increase the reflection roughness, so it's a little more matte. Like I know some leaves have like a little fuzziness to them. So let's do a 2.5, 0.75, and hide this and unhide it again to get that bug to go away. Okay, and yeah, so now we've got the back side going, and we've got the front going. And so now all that's really left is to just check it out on the tree and see how everything looks. And I'll move a light behind I'll move this light behind the tree so you could actually get a good idea of what's going on. And so pretty much this is the entire network. You have your textures front and back feeding into just a standard Redshift material. Back, same thing. Feeds into the race switch. You check off front and back. Color, back color. So each shader goes into its designated slot. Then this goes into the Sprite Shader. You add your alpha mask, and then you just apply it to whatever you're planning to use it with. And so let's turn the dome light back on. Let's fire off another IPR. And let's check out this tree. And actually let's hide all this other stuff now that we don't need it. And there we go again with that bug. So let's hide the tree, unhide the tree. It tends to do that. Again, this normally doesn't happen with Redshift, but since I'm using the experimental build, obviously there's going to still be bugs. Hence why it's experimental. And so we'll move this light back here. Let's make it a warmer color. Something like a little yellow. And let's tone down the dome light a bit so that way it's not overpowering that smaller light. So I don't know. We'll just use it for basically for a little bit of GI across the scene. And let's remove it from the visual. So right now the front is the specular is a little strong, but let's just get somewhere like this. And again, see the effect of this. If you turn off, this is like really important. If you turn this off and you just look at it, and I'll actually just do a render. Might as well just do a render so you can see a comparison. Let's do a quick render. Let's pause that. We'll do 256. 256. Yeah, it's fine. Let's just do a render. And so right now, basically, you're just not getting the light bleeding through the leaves. They're just opaque. And so just that little feature, the backlighting, makes a huge difference. So let's turn this back on to 1. And we'll save an image. Oh, it's doing it again. Let's do another render. Weird. Let's do an IPR until it starts working right. Come on. Okay. Now let's do a render. Now you can see just already there's a big difference. You're getting this nice light bleeding through, bouncing around. It lightens up the leaves basically just lighten up. The whole tree just gets a lot more light inside of it. And so if you just compare the two. And that's just only due to basically the backlighting. And that just makes a huge difference. And so that's about it. I mean, not much else to it. We turn that off, get this back up to 0, check out an IPR, and we just zoom out and we check out the whole tree. So yeah, that's the difference right there. That's the difference. Save another image. We'll turn that off. And I mean, it already looks just dull. The light's not going in there, and it misses out on that depth. And so yeah, that's all there is to making a nice leaf shader, really. Just make sure you have a front, a back, turn on backlighting, adjust your specular to your own, whatever the plant actually looks like on the front and back. Pipe that into a race switch, make sure back and front's on, Sprite, and you're good to go.